Frieda, thank you so much for being a part of this podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure to work with you. I was hoping you could share a little bit with our audience about what it was that drew you to this project.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me. It's a real joy to be part of this fantastic team. Well, I have to say that I have spent most of my life in environments where the power dynamics have made it difficult to be my whole self. And when you first asked me about this and my story, it was difficult and it's still difficult because, I've been able to navigate through these environments and spaces uh, by just doing this, falling back into just something that I learned to do and I do quite well, which is basically just trying to stay outside of the limelight and trying to amplify others' voices. And so I became a conference interpreter, and that's pretty much what I do on the daily as such. But then I started podcasting because of my love of podcasting, of podcasts and that medium that it provides for so much information that is so valuable that we have been missing, really. And of course, one of my biggest passions that is underlying and an undercurrent through all of it is just working on gender, and becoming a gender champion is something that just happened along the way. And I have been able to blend all of it in a way that it's been wonderful to do and to see what the possibilities are for that. As an interpreter, giving the voice to those people that need it to communicate in a different language. I take great satisfaction in that. But then also in podcasting, what I have been able to receive as somebody who's learning from many different interviewees and interviewers. um, I felt that I wanted to learn how to do that and be behind the scenes again, but bringing that to life, because there are so many stories out there that should be heard. And that's why when Bree asked for help, without hesitation, I quickly raised my hand and asked if I could join, because by then, I had already started with a different podcast and I have been doing it for a while. It began just as a passion project, but then it quickly became basically another part of my job, but still my passion project. I don't feel like it's work. It's something that I will do happily at any time.
Well, your passion shines through, and we are so thankful that you've lent your skills to this project because it means a lot to us to amplify those stories that we're going to share over the course of Forged in Fire.
Yeah, absolutely. We're so glad that you did raise your hand. And it's really interesting to hear how this passion and incredible skill set has developed for you over time. Um, so now that we're here, what is it that you're hoping we're going to be able to contribute with this project?
Well, I think that first, just giving that space, that safe space for people to be able to express themselves wholly and fully. I think that the two of you provide that safe space, and through podcasting, and this podcast in particular, I think that those stories that have had great impact and that are so inspiring uh, will be heard. And I know that these can be in writing and they can be in a radio show, they can be in a TV show, but I think that podcasts are able to transcend a lot more. And I think they're it's going to have a great impact in that sense. And I think that all these stories are going to be very important in different places. I come from El Salvador, and I know that these are stories that need to be heard, especially in places where they never are, you know.
Well, Frida, I think that brings up a great point that you and your family have this amazing legacy of service to others, amplifying voices that couldn't speak for themselves. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your background and why others' stories are so important to you?
Sure. So, the main reason why I decided to learn to podcast was because my I wanted my mother to tell the story of her family, and I wanted to do it for posterity. It wasn't going to be a project that I was thinking of putting out there or anything, but for her to tell the story that she, as the eldest child of her parents, could tell better than anyone, and she has been, which is that my grandfather, during World War II, he he was sent to Europe in a diplomatic mission. He was an army colonel for the Salvadoran army, and he was sent there in an unofficial exile, really, because he was the most worthy opponent of the dictator at the time. And so you had that authoritarian regime in El Salvador, and then you had well, what was happening with the Nazi regime in Europe. He was sent there, and long story short, because it's a very long and harrowing and wonderful story, but while he was there, he made the best of it. He was sent to three different countries for as long as they could keep him away. But during the Holocaust, he ended up issuing some safe conduits, and those were admitted by the Gestapo as official papers because they had a seal. And back then, if something had a seal, it was official. So and he issued them for families, and these were families of up to 10 people. So and then the Red Cross got involved, and then they ended, they concluded that it was a total of around 40,000 people that were saved through these safe conduits. And we know that number because he is now named Righteous Among the Nations in Yad Vashem. And for that to be the case, there needs to be a very thorough investigation of what happened, and especially if it's a non Jew that has saved a life and has not profited or asked for reward is the criteria that they take into account. So, it's a story that I learned in my 20s, really. And I learned about him, about my grandmother, an unlikely feminist, I learned. And many things that I was so inspired that some things needed to be made right in some way, and that included giving people a voice that didn't have it. And I think that it started there, really. And I'm still inspired, and I really appreciate people's courage in giving people that voice, and people taking on that opportunity to make their voices be heard.
That's okay. It was beautiful. And we are so happy that you've decided to share a little bit of your story and yourself with us, that desire to help others, and to be part of this team, which is going to amplify the voice of some truly incredible people as we explore their leadership journeys on Forged in Fire.
Thank you both.